Telling yourself that you are a new person every single January is so exhausting. I cannot even begin to tell you the amount of years I lived my life in being like, new year, new me in Jan. And it was just this exhausting cycle because this whole new me that I would set to be would only last like a month or two until the old me would come up and just wreck everything. And I know you can relate to that cycle, okay? I know you can relate to the cycle so well because everybody experiences it. There's a reason only 9% of people actually stick with their New Year's resolutions all year long. And it's because of this concept of New Year, New Me. But the truth is that the way that you go about it doesn't actually allow you to create this new you in a way that's sustainable, right? Everybody has this like fresh energy of the new year every single January. And then literally by mid-February, people have lost motivation and they're right back to where they started before. And I want things to be different for you this year. This year, I want you to be part of the 9% who is actually able to stick with their New Year's resolutions all year long. Because I don't know about you, I am trying to be part of that 9%. If you're new to my channel, my name is Dr. Bisley Natalie. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I love to teach people how to regulate and reset their nervous system. I love to teach people how to just optimize their mind so that they can step into their best selves. Part of that this year, especially that I want for you, is this year and coming into this year, I don't want you to think about all the habits that you want to set and redo and the new habits that you want to set, because that's what everybody always thinks about. Everybody always thinks about, okay, January is starting, what are the new habits that I want to set for myself? And oftentimes we set habits that are unattainable, we can't do them consistently, or we've created these habits in a way that we can only be consistent with them if all our outside circumstances are good. And I don't want you to do any of that. Having all these new habits in place sets so much pressure up for yourself. And to be honest with you, because your nervous system is not well regulated and in a healthy place, you end up falling off track so fast. And that's why you really can't sustain any of these habits. Trying to set new habits in place, honestly, it really sets you up for failure, because whenever we have to think about acting and showing up differently and having these new habits, you're constantly making decisions all day long. You're constantly thinking about the habits. You're constantly thinking about how you need to show up over and over and over again. And frankly, that's exhausting. It's exhausting to set all these new habits in place, and it's exhausting to be in this constant decision-making mode. And we know through research that we start the day off with really high willpower, and as our day goes on, our willpower starts to slowly decrease over time. So now if you've set your life up in a way that the only way to be consistent is if you make these powerful decisions for yourself, but your willpower is slowly decreasing all throughout the day, can you see how that is actually going to set you up for failure, and it's not going to actually allow you to be consistent long term? So this year, instead of setting new habits for yourself, I want you to set new standards. Your standards are very different than your habits because your standards are about who you are, not what you're trying to do. And this is essentially the minimum that you live by. And what's really powerful about setting these standards is that they remove the everyday negotiation that you do in your mind about the things that you know you're supposed to do, but then your mind just comes up with all these excuses as to why you shouldn't do it. I think the easiest way to represent standards when it comes to your healthy habits is to share the example of dating. And so when you think about dating, right, let's take a woman. Let's take a woman who has really high self-worth. She has a certain level and standard of men that she allows in her life and the type of men that she chooses to go out on dates with, right? So her standard might be that this man, needs to have a certain level of education. He needs to have a certain level of financial success. He needs to take care of his health in a specific way. He needs to have certain types of friendships and needs to be doing certain things with his free time. She has then internally created this level of standard of men that she chooses to go on dates with. And so if a man doesn't meet that standard, she doesn't think twice about if she's going to go on a date with him or not. She's not. Like he's already been kind of cut out of her mind because he doesn't meet the standard of the type of men that she goes out on dates with. There's no internal negotiation happening. There's just a sense of like, this is a part of my identity. This is what I'm choosing to be around. And either it's like you meet it or you don't, and that's okay. That example of dating can then also be brought into health and really resetting the standards of health that you have with yourself. That's the power of having standards, is that it removes that internal negotiation. You're not thinking twice about the things that you should be doing or not doing. You either do them or you don't. They're either a part of you and who you are, or they're not. So for example, you might have the standard that you don't work late into the night, or you might have the standard that you start your day late, or you might have the standard that you don't skip your meals and you nourish your body properly throughout the day. When you focus on standards instead of habits, you're focusing on identity. You're focusing on the person that you need to become, the person who these action steps come to easily, and that changes everything. So let's talk about how you're going to build standards in your life that you can actually stick with. So what I want you to do is, I don't want you to pick 10 different standards that you want. So again, let's go back to that dating example, right? That woman who has really high self-worth and created all these standards, created those standards one by one after she went on dates with men and was just like, ooh, I like this, I don't like this, right? She didn't just wake up one day and go like, I want X, Y, Z, Z in a man. And, some people are like that, but for a lot of people, it's about, really going through the experimentation process of finding what they like versus what they don't like, and then those standards are created. So I want you to take that same approach to the standards with your health. It's going to require a bit of experimentation, right? You might try one thing and be like, oh, actually, I didn't like that, and that's not the standard I want. I'd rather do this instead. So really approach it with that experimentation mindset. And ultimately, what I want you to do is I want you to pick 1 to 2 things in a specific area of your life that you want to prioritize. What I always say is that whenever you start a new year, have one main priority of the year. So for me, for example, that main priority is business. Doesn't mean that other areas of my life aren't going to matter. It just means that I'm going to be putting more of my emphasis and focus and give my best energy to my business, and everything else can take kind of my secondary energy. So if the area that you want to prioritize this year is your health, then I want you to choose 1 to 2 standards that you're going to test out and try and maintain throughout this year, right? So for you, that could look like you're going to wake up and work out first thing in the morning, and you are just someone who does that. Or for you, it's going to be that after lunch, you're always going to go on a 30-minute walk. And so I want you to think about these 1 to 2 standards that you want to set with your health, and I want you to master these standards over 2 to 3 weeks. Once you feel like these standards have become natural, so they've become natural if you don't have to think much about them. It doesn't mean that you're never going to have excuses, right? So I am the type of person who actually does wake up and work out first thing in the morning. Doesn't mean I don't have some days where my mind is just like, oh, please, let's just stay in bed for a little bit longer. But because it's just who I am, it's so much easier to ward those thoughts off. And most of the days, honestly, I don't even have that thought because it's just who I am now. So that standard has become a part of you and who you are when it feels a bit more natural. When those excuses come up and you're just easily able to ward them away because you're just like, no, this is who I am. I just wake up every single day and work out first thing in the morning, and you don't have to have that constant internal battle in your mind all day, every day. Another big standard for me that I really had to shift was really shutting my laptop off at the end of the night and being someone who doesn't work late into the night. Because before I was that. I was someone who would just work until like 12, 1 a.m. and then, my sleep cycle would be really disrupted. But now I am someone who shuts their laptop off by 8 p.m. max. I know for some people that still might feel really late, but for me, that is a very great time because again, I was working so late before unnecessarily. And to emphasize, really what's great about these standards is that they become a part of your identity and who you are, so that you no longer have to think about this. Like if I was to offer you heroin right now and be like, hey, do you want some? I gave you some needle and some heroin, and I was like, do you want some? What would you say? Hopefully you would say no, right? Because doing hard drugs is like not a part of you and who you are. You have a certain standard of what you let into your body, and hopefully drugs isn't a part of that. This is the same way that I want you to think about these other standards. The same way if I gave you drugs right now, you wouldn't do it. I want you to think about these other standards in that way as well, where you just feel so strongly, passionately about them that you go and do them without thinking twice. Setting standards in place is truly one of the easiest ways to to be consistent in 2026. If you're looking for more ways to be consistent in 2026 without hustling harder or burning out, I have a whole video on this where I actually give you 7 tips to be consistent in this new year. I really hope that this video was helpful, and most importantly, it's given you a different way to look at your habits, because when you lead with identity, when you lead with who you're becoming, being consistent becomes so easy.